Educators Alliance, and excited to be here with you today. We are going to just be doing our relaxed, laid back, easygoing session with Sean, and I'll have Sean introduce himself here in a little bit. But I'd also like to go ahead and have Whitney introduce herself.
Hi guys, my name is Whitney Miller. I am the Director of Finance and Membership with IDEA, and I'll be monitoring the chat, jumping in if Amber's connection drops, and just here, make sure you drop any questions in the chat and let me know if there's anything you need.
Thanks, Whitney. All right, as always, feel free to put your information in the chat window if you would like to share or have any resources to put in as well. I'll be putting my information in there also. A little information about yourself. Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Can you give an introduction of yourself?
Sure. I'm Sean Scanlon. I'm Director of Instructional Technology at Marian Catholic. It's about, I don't like to do the math, but I think I'm at about 25 years in education now. Basically, right now our school is running a little bit more of a synchronous approach and to this, but we are down to 4 days a week, thank God. And today, it's funny when you said this relaxed approach here, today is office hours for teachers. So we go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And it is amazing that the stress levels have gone down, but finding different things to keep me busy within the school building, mail merging and things like that, of contract time, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's amazing what you get thrown into. All right.
Not sure if we have Amber there, so.
Yeah, absolutely, especially during this time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So with that, Sean, interestingly enough, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it cuts out a little bit, but.
Does it? Okay. Well, what I was just finding interesting is that you are the second person in the last week who has shared that your district has gone to Wednesday being office hours, which I feel like the majority of those that we've talked about, Friday has been office hours. So can you share a little bit with us about the process and, I guess, reason behind the Wednesday office hours?
Yeah, I think number one, we wanted that break. I don't know, we didn't really look at Fridays so much. I think it was just that idea that since we're doing synchronous and the kids are in school essentially 8 o'clock till 2:30, it made more sense to do 2 days of that, take a break, do 2 days of that, and then have the weekend. Then have 4 days a week of that in a row. Even that third day was getting rough. So I think that was a big part of why Wednesday. And then the main part of Wednesday for us is to shut it down. We put 2-hour blocks together, and so like I can't remember exactly who's when, but we split up English, math, and science. Each of those is in a different 2-hour block because those we figured would require the most questions, time of teachers, things like that. And then we put the other departments in with them. So we have three 2-hour blocks. And so like social studies goes in with English. I mean, I know as a social studies teacher, I'm not getting as many questions as somebody is on a term paper. So we kind of split it up that way, and it seems to be working well. The main focus is we are still getting our list of students because being public school, being private school, our grades are able to fluctuate. We're watching those lower scores, but we're pulling the kids that are struggling and reaching out to them with real intent to get them into these Wednesday office hours. So some of them might be appointment slots by teachers, might be a general Zoom session, things like that. One of the teachers just texted me, I was tried to be on for 2 hours, but it just shut off after 40 minutes of nobody being there and nothing going on. I'm like, yeah, that'll do that. So obviously those kids were good, and 40 minutes later, it's just going to shut down by itself, and so should you. So go enjoy your day, and that's it. But yeah, the main purpose is getting those kids that are struggling, trying to get them in there one-on-one time and stuff like that. So that's our main purpose with Wednesday, and why it's in the middle, why we're doing it there instead of Friday.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. And I think that the other district, it was actually Indian Prairie
Okay.
School
204.
District
Yeah.
that was doing that, had a, I definitely can see the advantages of that. So I think it's been interesting over the course of the last, 6 weeks that we've been doing this, how some of those changes have been made.
Yeah, because we started 5 days a week, whatever March Blatine, whatever day that was, and then after 3 weeks we went into spring break. And when we hit spring break, we knew we couldn't come out of it the same way. Nobody was going to make it. Nobody was going to make it till the end of April, let alone the end of May. So, really glad we made that decision, made that change.
So you mentioned that you have educators using Zoom or Google Hangouts.
Right.
Are your educators
in regards
choosing
to that
their
change?
Oh, sorry, Amber, what?
I think you go ahead.
Okay. Are they choosing what platform they want to communicate or communicate with their students with? Or are you kind of guiding that, or what does that look like in your district?
Yeah, we left it open what they want to use, especially after Zoom made the corrections they did. We went through a lot of the security stuff with our teachers and said, hey, if you're going to use it, here's the settings you want to go through and make sure you're good with. But I think it's just, maybe it's a little easier to get on Google on Meet and just to run something open. Whereas if you want to get the teachers, I think, that are more tech savvy to begin with, it was easier for them to jump into Zoom and go, oh, breakout rooms, awesome. I'm going to use that for my small group discussions and stuff like that. And they were able to grab, and they could see the whiteboard options were one-to-one iPads. So the whiteboard option in Zoom makes a lot of sense for us, where the teachers can actually write on their iPad. I came across a really cool idea for the people that can't use Zoom in their district. I saw a Jamboard, which I've loved since it came out. Love the idea of it. So what that person was doing, the teacher had an iPad, and he had the same Jamboard open on his iPad, and then he was sharing the screen in Zoom, and he pulled up the same Jamboard that he had on his iPad by sharing his screen in Zoom. So then there's a hair delay, but the kids wouldn't know that because all the audio was coming through. So he was explaining it and drawing on Jamboard. So it was an interesting approach to whiteboards. other than, taking your laptop into the shower and using the shower wall.
Yeah, I've seen some of that. So would you share a little bit more about Jamboard? We've heard it mentioned, but we've not really explored it at all.
Yeah,
Do you know?
it came out, and one of the big selling point, if you watch like some of the Jamboard videos on YouTube, there's a $5,000 Jamboard that you can buy, essentially a whiteboard, but it's really interactive. So I can open up the Jamboard app on my device. You can have it on your device, and Amber could be on the actual Jamboard. Anything we're adding onto that board is showing up automatically on the big fancy board, like let's say Amber would have. So it's really they never put an education price on it. Their big push was business and collaborative meetings and business with it. So I wish there was an education price for Jamboard, but at about $5,000, you don't need the board, for the students. So the nice thing is it's more manipulative. Like a lot of things, like, yeah, okay, so I can put the text in there and things like that. So why can't I just use slides or drawing or whatever? But it allows for more moving of objects around. It's a really good kind of brainstorming, like storyboarding or something like that. So you could get 3 or 4 kids to share one Jamboard. They could organize their thoughts, ideas, and it does have slides to it at the top. So it's not just one whiteboard. You can actually have more like slides essentially to organize on the Jamboards. So I really like it. I think it's a great way to organize ideas, brainstorm ideas, but now it gives you the ability to write on the screen. So the iPad part is pretty new. I'm not sure when that came out, but I was waiting for that. So
It's kind of like a virtual interactive smartboard, sort of.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I think Mike had a question. Mike, feel free to come off mute and ask your question if you would like. Oh, Mike says that he's using Jamboard as a way to do digital shares with kindergartners. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That would be really neat. Mike, if you're comfortable, feel free to come off mute and talk about that, but if not, that's okay. Amber says that her son was thinking it would be a way for him to have done his math equations, which that makes sense too. It would be great for that.
Yeah, writing it out on there. That's been a big struggle. Probably one of the biggest struggles in our building to find ways where students can actually do the math. Teachers know it's actually them that did the math, because Algebra 1, Algebra 2, photo math it does everything for them. So it's really hard to tell what's going on when you have photo math in there for Algebra 1, Algebra 2. Geometry, not going to be as much with that one, but that is probably one of the biggest struggles in the building. Like, we don't know who's doing the work. So we're looking at Flipgrid, the screen record option. Students have Notability on the iPads, note-taking app that'll record their process. So trying to get some videos submitted, but you also can't expect the teachers to collect 120 videos, 4 problems each. Like, oh no, that'd be crazy.
Not sustainable.
Yeah, I could do that on the final exam, and all you're going to find out there is all the points those kids got for doing math for the last month. They didn't really do anything.
Right.
So they're doing it as a spot check, but it is tough.
Sure. And I cut Mike off. He started to come off mute, and I apologize. So feel free to jump in, Mike, if you would like.
Hi, this is Jody Mahoney. I'm not sure why I'm showing up as Mike.
Sorry, Jody.
Sorry. No.
I was so confused by your message. I was like,
know.
I'm so sorry. I don't
No,
know what I
it's
did. So I just wanted to share that I'm using the Padlet website to, with my, right now I just did it with kindergartners. And one thing I like about it is that you can, there's a little caret at the top, you can create a new Padlet page. And I just use it as a way for students to give feedback, to share an idea of something that was covered in the whatever the lesson was. And it's also a way students can add an image, they can draw. It's a great way to have them, be brainstorming and making connections to each other.
Nice. Yeah.
Can I ask the question?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I know about the Jamboard and then the Padlet. You all switched between the two. I was listening.
Right.
For both, this is one of the issues that we've been kind of struggling with. I think I got a workaround, but with both of them, you give the kids the link. And so I know the big kids can handle the multitasking of a tab. But for the Jamboard, you were saying you were dealing with the little kids. So how did they, I guess everybody's on a laptop, because in Chicago, we're dealing with a lot of iPads or either tablets or cell phones. And so one of the teachers brought up that you can send them the link, but you have to be able to multitask between two tabs. And that's correct. Is it, Amber?
So you're saying when they get the link to a Jamboard, if they don't have the Jamboard app installed on the device, yeah, I could see where it's gonna have it open on another tab, where it's just gonna open on the Wi-Fi on the Safari or Chrome browser. And I mean, it is a free app, but I know that's another step. Like, okay, install this app, and depending on whose device it is.
It's usually Chicago Public Schools, and they, before this happened, so even though we gave kids their Chrome, even if we gave them a Chromebook or a laptop or iPad, there was restrictions on everything in school.
Right.
So nobody could download anything. So yeah, they got the devices at home. Even the teachers have the devices at home, but they can't download. They can't download anything. So it's stopped. And I know with Google, there's a workaround that if you download it on your personal Google account, when you open up your district account, your school account, it will still be there. You will have it, because
Right.
you put it on your computer. But for the Padlet, which I love, and I like Jamboard too, but with the Padlet, you have to send the little kids a link. So I was wondering if Amber is still here. How are they multitasking, or how are they opening that, or is it a parent there doing it, or what is happening there?
Jody, do you have an answer for that?
Sure. I was just gonna try and put a link in the chat to a Padlet that I use with kindergarten. And while you were talking, Margaret, I went to the Padlet from kindergarten, and boy, did it get messy. So I was going on my Google Classroom to another one, but if it's okay with you, I'll post the link so you can take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay, give me a second. I'll post the link in chat. Does that sound good, you guys? Or
yeah, I would like to see.
Yeah.
I always tell my colleagues we have to work together, because, and let me say this: I am a clinician, a social worker. So, and I'm kind of an anomaly in my field, because the human touch and working with people is one of the things that is our expertise. But this technology thing is something different. So when we're trying to do this workaround and trying to, work with the kids, that's the one thing that is the struggle, is just the interactive, like with a little kid. If you're doing the Padlet, if it could just open up, but our kids are on these tablets, or either they're on their cell phone.
Right.
And, you know, you have to switch between, if they're looking at, if you're presenting your screen, then they have to flip over to the other tab to kind of manipulate, like Kahoots. If you're doing a Kahoots or something, you have to see the boxes that you're going to push, but then you have to flip back over to the other screen to see what the question is. So the kids can't really manipulate that 2-tab situation.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I was trying to see with Padlet, or Jamboard, if it'll take you right there.
Yeah. Without the app, I think it's going to do the same thing. We're going to have another tab open. Now I know with Kahoot, some of the teachers I know are putting the Kahoot, the questions, they're running like a Google, a Meet or a Zoom, and they're putting the questions on the screen. So the students only have to have the answer key on their device. So they can be watching it live and entering their answers on their device. I know some teachers are doing that.
Yeah. That was the I guess it's just the issue when they have a cell phone, because you gotta yes, the flipping back and forth.
Oh, and it's going to be tough, because how much can you do on that? You know, even with little fingers, to move items, to change them around, that is definitely not going to be the easiest. Yeah, I definitely, I feel for the bigger districts that, you know, dealing with that many kids, that many devices, where you weren't fully, you know, one-to-one when this started, you know, and now it's playing catch up, and now all the devices are spread out all over the city of Chicago.
Right.
And we can't do anything because they're spread out all over the city of Chicago.
Or even the teachers trying to upgrade.
Right.
You can't download maybe the new whiteboard for Microsoft, because your system has to be updated, and you can't update it unless the admin comes in and maybe they have to update it. So we've been running into quite a few different little kinks with that. But I was just wondering, I know Padlet does a lot. I was with IDEA earlier, and we talked a lot about some of the, we touched on Jamboard and Google Drawings and some other things that kind of connect to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and some of it can be done if they have access to Google Slides. Some of it can be done there. One of the tricks that we use is, so if you wanted to like organize things on a slide, like, you know, put all the blue circles over here or something like that. What we've done is change the background of the slide so that it's like, that's where the answer key is. And then when they move objects on the slide, it doesn't mess with the background. It doesn't mess with like a picture where the answers go to the right or go to the left or something like that. So you make that picture and then you put it in as the background. And when it's the background, it won't move when things are moved on top of it. So that's an option if they have slides, as far as manipulating objects and putting things in there. That's pretty easy one to use that way. But yeah, if you just put a picture in, and it'll start moving around when they move it around.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I didn't realize that Mike was Jody, and that Jody was one of our coaches that was joining us, and that was my mistake. So Jody, would you mind introducing yourself? And I don't know if you have any other feedback. I know you shared a Padlet link in the chat that I just shared out. So yeah, take it away.
Sure. Sorry about that. I have no idea why I look like Mike, but I'm so amused by that.
Your name is Mike too.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So here I am struggling with technology like my students. So, right. It's such a humbling, this whole thing has been really humbling for me. I just want to say, I'm not the world's most confident person in general, and I have found this to be such a transformation
for me to have to, just whatever I put out there, it's not just my students seeing it, it's their parents, it's their grandparents, it's right, it's everybody. And so when I make a mistake, I am just making it so globally. So anyway, just another opportunity for me to smile at myself and take myself a little less seriously. So I thought I would share that because that's something.
Don't feel bad, because I got on and one day my hair was like a bird's nest, and I was like, wait a minute, and this computer keeps chiming like ding ding, and then when I looked at the replay, it was and I said, oh my God. And so I'm adding these things to my list of what not to do, but to turn off all these notifications, and it's like crazy. So don't worry, we know what you mean.
Thank you for that, Margaret. So my name is Jody Mahoney, and I am a technology teacher at a K-8 school in Chicago Public Schools, like Margaret. And our students are primarily, I was late to this call. I apologize because I found out late that I had a leadership meeting I had to be at this morning, but we have 653 students, and so far only 23 of them are listed as officially non-digital. So we've come a long way in the last 6 weeks or so, but it's been a real struggle, and so much time has been spent, like I'm sure it is with you guys, trying to find students and trying to find ways to get them connected. We primarily are using Google Classroom and Google Meets. For the first 2 weeks, we were told by Chicago Public Schools, was it 2 weeks? We could not do digital. We had no ability to do video of any kind. And that was really challenging for us. We were doing Google Chats, and that was fun in the beginning, but such a small number of students were participating. And our last day was Monday, March 16th. I was teaching March 17th. And so were a lot of my colleagues trying to figure out how to do things in chats. And then I think it was, maybe Margaret, you probably know, was it 2 weeks later, all of a sudden we did remote learning, and Chicago Public Schools came up with this new remote learning plan, as if we hadn't been teaching for 2 weeks.
Right.
But the plan required us to do these funky, I don't want to sound negative. We had a new format for lesson plans that are now, as part of the remote learning plan, posted on our website, which I think is great. So it's a forward-facing, digital document for parents and community members to be able to see what we're doing, which I think is great. I think we should keep doing that to be more transparent and to provide another way to connect with parents about what's going on in our classrooms.
And
so
then the notice came out that no Zoom at all, when mostly everyone was using Zoom.
Yeah.
And they said absolutely no Zoom meetings for Chicago Public School District.
Right. So that's also a challenge, such a transformation and such a learning curve for teachers who then were putting such creative work into connecting with students for that 3 weeks, when it felt like the wild, wild west. And then all of a sudden they came up with what they call the remote learning plan, which I was kind of offended because I'd been teaching remotely for 3 weeks, and so had all my colleagues. But the bottom line is, right, Margaret, that's a challenge. So using the Google Meets and Google Classroom and transitioning to that, I just want to applaud teachers that I work with all over the district who like in my daughter's school, they weren't doing Google Classrooms until 2 weeks ago. So right. I just think teachers are these amazing, creative, collaborative, people who are helping make a huge difference here. So I wanted to, one of the things that is challenging for me is my kindergarten. So I teach technology for K-8. I see every student once a week for like their, for their whole career. So my kindergartners didn't have Google Classroom until we started this process, and our assistant principal back at school has been working with teachers and parents, helping them get classroom codes for students. And now I have kindergartners in Google Classroom. So keeping them engaged has been a challenge for me, because I'm teaching completely differently than I would be if they were in my classroom, doing basic computer skills, keyboarding, digital literacy. So that's why I decided to play with Jamboard with them, and I'm doing digital citizenship with them, which is what I would be doing if they were with me. So I use Common Sense Media and the digital citizenship curriculum with them at the kindergarten level. And I chopped up a video to introduce the 4 different characters, and then they use Jamboard to share ideas about what they're learning. And I just, to Sean's point, I think I'm using it differently than if it were everybody together, but it's a good way for them to just share what their ideas are.
That's awesome. And I love Common Sense. I'm trying to find the link here for that to drop in the chat if you happen to have it handy.
Yeah, I can post it. I think I'll go get that right now. I'm also doing digital citizenship with 4th grade, and I think, what, you guys probably know this, but when you have a teacher account with Common Sense Media, the curriculum for digital citizenship is current, it's relevant, and they continue to update it, right? And so and it's funny for my 4th graders, I'm using, they do such a great job. There's a whole lesson plan that you get for by grade level, and then they give you Google Slides, and I'm actually presenting in presenter mode the Google Slides for the 4th grade digital citizen curriculum. And then I'll do it live with a Google Zoom, with a Google Meet, and then I do a little tutorial where I videotape it using Screencastify and actually go into present mode, do part of the slides, and I modify the slides to take all the stuff that, and just make it us. And so I have a Screencastify little tutorial that students can watch in Google Classroom, and then they they give you everything that you need. They have a little quiz that you can take at the end. So yeah, I'll post the link. Sorry, and I'm done. Sorry for rambling.
No, that was awesome, and I love Common Sense Media. That's great. I hadn't used it much with the younger students, so that's good to hear. I wanted to make sure we pause for a moment to answer any questions that anyone has. Feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat, and I can share it out. So we'll just pause for a moment and see if anyone has anything they'd like to have answered.
Oh, do you want us to talk about the anything with the drawing app? Is that what you're relating to?
Oh, just in general, everyone probably joined the chat for a certain reason or to have a certain question answered, maybe. So just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to make sure their questions are answered. So if you have a question about that, go ahead if you would like to.
I'm gonna remember my question. I'm trying to get back on here with you guys. I'm in a little screen. Just a moment. Oh no. Okay, there you are.
We can hear you, so if you want to share it, your question, we can address it.
I'm thinking back on it. I'll give
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to get the video. All right. So I do have a question here for Jody, and I know you'd mentioned that it has been a challenge to engage the kindergartners, and I've actually heard that from a number of my friends down here that are public school teachers. And particularly when their only access is through a phone. So Jody and Sean, since Sean, you might have some input on this, but have you heard of any, in addition to what Jody's doing, which sounds awesome, but any success stories with those really young learners or cool activities or hooks that you have any teachers that are using with those groups?
You know what, I'm gonna look if somebody wants to answer that. Riverside Brookfield, my sister's on the board in that district in Brookfield, and for the grade school, and I like the template. I'm gonna just find her email real quickly. It's a publicly shared thing. I like the template they send out, and then when the kids are finishing something, They're being asked just a quick prompt. Was this too easy for you, too difficult for you? And it's kind
I
of
love that.
steering some of the learning from home. I don't know how much of that. I don't think we can see that part of it. You'd have
Mhm.
to sign in as a student, but I think the structure of what they put together was really nice. It's the same structure. It looks like you're looking at the same thing every day. What day is it? Pick the day. What's
Love
the
that.
level? All that. They built it all in it
Nice.
was pretty interesting. And the other thing is, it's Julie, right? Not Mike or Jody.
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 Yes, Jody.
yeah.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah. When I knew it wasn't Mike. When one thing, I don't know if you saw, Pear Deck added the audio component. So I was just thinking, as you were talking
Oh,
about pushing out those like screencasts, I think with that audio component now in Pear Deck, we could push that same lesson where we're getting feedback from the students, from the Common Sense Media stuff. And I think a lot of that is already even designed for Pear Deck, but now we can put the audio on top of it.
yeah.
So it
that's
adds
great.
that component, which is really nice.
And so basically the kid will be able to, they'll be able to see everything and hear it, just not basically interact with it, but they'll be able to do a little bit more than just visualize it. They can hear it now in Pear Deck.
And with Pear Deck, you build in the questions, so it interacts with the material already, but now you can actually put your own voice on top of it, and that's what teachers were kind of clamoring for a while. So now you can hear the teacher's voice, not just going through a slide deck.
Do you know if it's like a free version for a certain amount of time, or is it? I guess we can go on the website.
It is free, except for two components. There's one where you write on the screen, where the students could write on the screen, like draw their own answers with a pen or something like that. And then the other one is there's like dots where they can move things, like how well do you get this? Move it all the way to the left if you got it really well, or move to the right if you don't. Those are the two options that you get when you pay for Pear Deck. And I think there's some other things in there maybe, but overall definitely usable for free.
Okay.
Great. Kevin has asked a question. He says, how does it go using Google Classroom with kindergartners? I've been suggesting we try that for a while with little movement. Jody, didn't know if you wanted to jump in on that one.
Sure. I think that's a great question. The way we did it at our school was teachers did it. They either created, you have to have, in order to have a Google Classroom, obviously you have to have the process in CPS is you have to go into CPS Gmail and kind of activate an individual email account. So teachers could either do that for students on their own, or they could ask parents to do it. So about 6 weeks ago, it was super messy because we didn't have an overall plan going into remote learning.
Right.
Classrooms did it differently, but getting the code to the parents was sent through email. So parents would manually go in once they got their kids, the email activated, and they just go into Classroom. And I'm the technology teacher, so they got the code from me in email, and then just added the Classroom code that way. So messier than it would have been if we were in Classroom the way we usually do it. Because typically for my first graders, when I introduce Google Classroom, I walk them through, we get into their email for the first time, and then they have the code to get in the classroom, and we all do it together. It's really supportive and we make it fun. But we've communicated to parents through email primarily to get them those codes. Did that answer your question, Kevin? And we also do that we did that for pre-K as well. So
oh wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it was helpful because I mentioned that our assistant principal is really savvy, and he worked with the pre-K teachers who had never done classroom, by the way. You wouldn't expect them to necessarily.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we had teachers learning how to do it and parents being willing to go activate those emails for their pre-K kids and then get those codes through email. So it's working.
I love that. That's amazing.
You know, the only thing that and so I'm going to represent the even though I'm north, but I'm going to represent South Chicago. So, and my husband works in a South Side school. So many of the schools never use Google Classroom because the kids were already there and they knew that they had problems with the devices and they weren't letting the students take the devices home. So the need for Google Classroom just hadn't come up. So now they're trying to do it. And some people don't understand that you can't have a classroom unless someone joins. And it doesn't become active. People are like, well, I got Google Classroom, but nothing is happening because nobody joins.
Yeah.
And for clinicians, that's the thing. I said, Google Classroom is synonymous with doing schoolwork. And if you're normally like a counselor or someone that talks with the kids, they're thinking, why am I coming to another classroom to get some more work? So you have to have a reasoning for the kids to actually come. So our little kids, the teacher, because no one under like third grade had their CPS emails yet. They have them, but they haven't been passed out. They don't utilize them. And so the teachers had to get it. They had to get it loaded on the kids' computer or give it to the parent. And really the parent is working the Google Classroom, not the kids, because developmentally, the kids aren't there yet sometimes to drop, to send, to put stuff in. It's just too many movements, and that's a developmental thing. And once again, I'm talking from a more of a perspective of kids that might even be in the special ed area or kids that have diverse needs. They're just not there. So the parents are actually the ones that are doing the Google Classroom. They're getting on, they're getting their assignments, they're learning while the teacher is learning also. And that's one of the struggles.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. We know that the equity issue has definitely been brought to light with all of this. We knew it was there, but boy, it's just getting emphasized more and more, and we need to have that story heard, by people that can make decisions to help
Right.
on those things.
I see in the chat that someone still mentioned again about the classroom with students, and I wanted to be clear that once you set up your Google Classroom, it can't become really active unless you have students that sign up in it. So someone has to come to your class, and then if you're in a school environment, and the tech person is actually walking the kids through it. Now, here's the code, kids. You take it, you log on, and then you put your name will pop up. If like just like Kahoot, when you put your name in, you'll pop up, you'll become visible. But in Google Classroom, my husband was making one, and I said, well, you don't have any students yet. And so it's good when you have somebody, and I went in and I became a student, so you can actually see how it starts to transform into an actual working class board.
Right.
Margaret, yeah. One of the challenges we faced for teachers, like our gym teacher who was setting up her Google Classroom as we started remote learning, was actually going into the people page of your classroom. Yeah. And you can invite students. And when you do that, when you manually invite them, then they get an email, and all they have to do is click on the join link there, and there's nothing they have to do. And that automatically allows them to get in.
So that's, we found that to be kind of a way of getting more students with, less that they had to do.
So let me even bring it back a little bit further, and further challenges. And for those that are listening and writing, if you haven't, and this seems really strange, but for you, for people that are techie, and I'm like the techie person also, but if you've never been told to click a link, then what are you talking about? And that's what the parents were saying. What are you telling me to push? Or what is it that, so the word link wasn't even familiar. So even though we invited the kids they sent the teacher back email saying that they didn't know what he wanted them to push. So then we had to go further, saying it's something highlighted with a line that's blue. Push that. Don't push the picture. Push that. Yeah. And it even came down to that.
I can see that.
Yeah, we had a couple comments in the chat that there are a lot of steps for setting up or for utilizing Google Classroom for the first graders. I will say too, we have many are using cell phones or have no device at all. And I live and I've taught in a very rural area of Illinois, and the first district I was at was almost entirely free and reduced lunch. And most of those students are accessing through devices. I will say the Google Classroom student app, if they have it on their phone or their parents' phone, is very intuitive and very easy to use. And sometimes I would recommend that for my high school students to just access that rather than through their laptop sometimes, because it seemed more bite-sized chunks. So that one is easily accessed from a cell phone. So as far as the multiple steps, I don't know if Sean or Jody, if you have any kind of a document that kind of is the how-to or the jump start or anything you share with your parents maybe at the beginning of the year or that's been created since this started.
We don't have anything. We use Schoology, but same kind of thing. People got to get in there. People got to know how. Right. One thing I found helpful for the tech people is I make GIFs or GIFs, whichever way you want to go. But I make those if it's just a quick couple step process. And I literally just sent that. Just repeat the look at the process in the video. It'll repeat itself. Follow those 3 steps that you have to do to get in, right? And then those are really easy to follow. Because the other thing is, if I email you a document saying how to, and it's got 10 steps to it, and and the only device you have is your phone. Now, again, we're flipping not only tabs, but we're switching between email and the app and if I can just send that video and you can watch that video and it's easy enough to remember. So I try to do them in chunks, and that's to help.
It's very accessible that way too, because those are so popular on social media.
Right.
How do you make them? Is there a certain website you use?
I lucked out years ago. I became a Google trainer, and I don't know if they still do it, but at that point they gave us Camtasia for free.
Okay, yeah.
And Camtasia lets me spit them out as a GIF. So that's how I do it. Is I use Camtasia. I know there's some other tools out there that'll let you save them as that or convert them.
It's if I could jump in, it's we spoke about on another webinar about and I knew of this, is that this might be fun with some of the teachers and even Jamboard, that the kids, they pick a picture out of Google Images and they can use drawing or in mostly the Google Drawing, or the teacher can set up something, maybe some pages for them. And you get a picture, like funny picture of a cat, and then they write, the words or something on it, and it makes the memes. And that's a good assignment that one person brought up. And then they do have something called Giphy, where you can make, like technology moves so fast that what you didn't have 3 years ago, you have now. And what wasn't there, like at first, maybe 3 weeks ago, the Google Meets didn't even have the grid view. And now they have the grid view, and you don't have to use the extension. So technology moves and changes so much. They add on. So I think that's a unique way that even the little kids might be able to kind of play around with an image and write little cool words on it and become like a gift.
Yeah, yep, definitely approachable, I think. And Jody said Screencastify is allowing unlimited disk space for teachers to create videos, helpful, that videos automatically upload to your Google Drive. And if you have a Google Classroom, it's extremely easy to take something and upload it or to add it to your classroom from your Google Drive. And thanks, Sean. He just dropped in a link for creating those.
Yeah, that Margaret just mentioned.
We just have a few minutes left, and Jody, I want to address what you just put in the chat, but I want to make sure that everyone did see the link to the PDHs that Amber, she gave it to me. So I'll be putting that in here in just a moment, so be watching for that if you are interested in obtaining those. And Sean and Jody, make sure if you need them that you use that as well. Jody, do you want to touch on the Google Meet extension for taking attendance? That sounds really cool.
So the extension is helpful for me because when you're trying to engage students and present content and somebody joins your Meet, you want to recognize them. And also sometimes I use those Google Meets as a way just to verify the students were there, right? It's a way to show that we had digital contact with them. So it's helpful because you don't have to go back and try and figure out who was there. You could use it for grading purposes. It isn't supported or developed by Google. We aren't going to deploy it through our Chromebooks for that reason. And I did notice I've been using it. I just found out about, I think a week ago, and it's being updated kind of regularly. You can export it as a CSV. You can export it directly to Google Sheets. So I find that really helpful. Just wanted to point that out if you need attendance for your Google Meets.
That is awesome. What's the name of the extension?
You just
put it in there. Awesome. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
No problem.
Very cool. All right, so in just the last few minutes, I wanted to first see if anyone had any questions that we have not answered.
I wanted to ask just really quickly, because I know we got like 3 minutes. I did look at Screencastify, and I'm looking at Screencast-O-Matic, and I was just wondering, did anybody use Screencast-O-Matic? I know that was always kind of the tool that they use for schools.
Yeah, our principal uses Screencast-O-Matic a lot. He likes it. It's, I think it's just kind of what your preference is. The ease of Screencastify, the fact that it's storing it right in your Google Drive is just a huge selling point.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the PDHs, and you guys have probably figured out by now the Zoom isn't allowing us to hyperlink in the chats. So you'll have to copy and paste that. Parting words, Sean, do you have any advice you'd like to share with folks? And then Jody, you as well after Sean?
Yeah, I'd say the big thing, feedback. Like how can you, finding those ways you can effectively give feedback to your kids and how they can get it to you so you know where they actually are. Mm-hmm. We really haven't deployed many new tools over the pandemic. We were already using quite a bit, and it was always about feedback for us. I would say that's the big piece. Yeah.
I agree completely. We can't grow as educators or
right.
as students without that piece.
Right.
Jody?
I guess I would connect to that and just say I realize as I reflect on what I'm teaching, that's been a challenge for me because I continue to put content out there and I'm getting so little feedback. I'm still trying to find students, still trying to find creative ways to support them. And that's been very draining for me. And I guess what I realize is one of the things that fills me up as a teacher is getting, contact with kids on a daily basis. The smiles, from middle school students, the sarcastic jokes. I don't get any of that right now. Right, the eye rolls, right, all those things. We know this, and I had no idea that I was such a visual communicator. So I have to, at some point it becomes not about me, but about my students. So to connect, Sean, to what you said, you're exactly right. I teach photography as a middle school elective, and students are using the Google Classroom app on their phones to post images right to Classroom. So your students could be doing the same thing, right? They could take a picture of themselves doing an activity and post it right to your Classroom stream. And I'm trying to respond to things that students post as quickly as I can, just to, connect to that social emotional learning. I think it's really important for them to see anything from us. So
definitely.
Yeah, I saw a tweet about that. Somebody said the other day about the living off that energy in the classroom and in the building. And it, for whatever reason, it just hadn't hit me until I read that, and it's like that's it right there. It's that energy that we get from those kids. I'm glad you said that, because I just read it yesterday and I'm like, that's it. I'm just staring at a screen. It's not, there's no real time. I don't care how close this is. It's not that. Yeah.
The articulation of how much we miss our students and why we do what we do. So I love that. All right. We are at time here. So I would like to thank both Jody and Sean for joining us, and everyone else who came for coming and asking questions. Again, please copy and paste the PDH link that is in the chat, and make sure to reach out if you have any questions or if you need anything.
Yes, will we have a copy of the chat?
Yeah, yep, it will be emailed out as well as a recording in the next 24 hours.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, thanks guys. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks so much.
You too.